Okay, and welcome to part 2. If you didn't watch part 1, it's around here. Bloop. It's Filmmaking 101, a crash course to becoming a filmmaker. You know, your first level college classes or just basic information. Even if you know it, it might be worth the shot. And if you're coming from that video, I hope you enjoyed it. In this video, we're talking about more technical, intermediate to professional level information. So stuff about understand how to make a more cinematic image, on-set jargon, different lighting techniques. Those kind of ideas are in this video. So without any further ado, part 2. What's going on, people? We're back. New location, but same old list. So let's continue. Got my notes. Sticks. What are those? It's just your tripod legs. When you get on more professional tripods, you start using fluid heads like I mentioned earlier, and the heads come off. So the head is the head, the sticks, the legs are the sticks. So if you ever hear that on set, that's what that is. Same thing with clapper, slate. That's just the thing that pretty self-explanatory. If someone asks you to go get a cookie, they're not telling you to go to Crafty, they're telling you to go get a cucaloris, which is a wooden, sometimes it's metal, like a scrim material, but it just has little cuts out of it, and you put that in front of a light and it gives texture, maybe some leaves, you can then kind of shake it. People use that to add some texture to shadows when lights are being shot on, you know, at night or something. So if someone asks you to go get a floppy, they're talking about a 4x4 with the extra material that folds down to make it a 4x8. So that can be either a top hinge or a bottom hinge. A silk is a 4x4 diffusion. It can be any size, but that standard is 4x4. And then a solid is just a black flag without the material. And then obviously a bounce is a bounce. And that's kind of, you know, jargon for any kind of flag. So now you know. So apple boxes, they're used to lift up people, lift up, you know, tripods, lift up lights, you know, really kind of anything. It's a very versatile tool on set. There's 3 ways to lay them: LA, Chicago, New York. And that is dictated by the sides. So LA is the smallest, Chicago is the mid, and then New York is when you're on tall. So that's just a little fun little fact that you might not know. When someone yells points, that's just they're walking around with a C-stand or some kind of, you know, it could be sticks, it could be anything that they're walking. You say points when you're walking around so people know that you're coming. A martini shot is the last shot of the day. Rack focus is when you pull from one focus to another focus and then back to the other focus. That is a rack focus. Video village, that is the area where the monitors are set up, where producers are set up, where the director will sometimes be. It is usually offset. If you're working on a shoot like a reality TV show, it's usually out of sight. And it is the place where people stand to watch all the monitors. If it's a multi-cam shoot, there'll be multiple monitors for each camera, and it just, you know, the command center for anyone that needs to be behind. Also, if you are a focus puller or first AC, you will be most likely in Video Village or near Video Village. Shutter angle or shutter speed. For shutter speed, because most people are probably using that if they use DSLRs or they're new to it, but that is the amount that the sensor is allowed to see light via the shutter spinning or moving in your camera, in traditional cameras at least. The shutter speed should be, or the shutter angle, the shutter speed should be double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 23.9.8 or 24, you should be at 50. And, you know, up as you go. And that just makes it the most standard, best, you know, all around kind of best image. Now, when using shutter angle, it's the same. It's just a different way to look at it. Cinema cameras usually use shutter angle over shutter speed. So you're not using a fraction, you're just using a degree. You can change it to being lower or higher. The lower the shutter angle or the lower the shutter speed, you'll get more of a dreamy kind of like very like blurry, slower frame rate look, versus the higher the shutter or the higher the angle, you'll get more of a realistic, you know, think war films or fighting scenes where it's kind of really sharp and like punchy. That's because they up the shutter speed, shutter angle to get that effect. What is a lav? Well, I was using it in the first video. A lav or a lavalier mic is a tiny little mic, a lapel mic, whatever, you put under your shirt. Now, best practices, a lot of times you'll see people just clipping it right here. That is not the best place to put it, because what you're getting is a lot of the throat. You're getting a very vibrations deep, and it kind of just doesn't sound natural. Versus a shotgun mic, when it's catching your voice out here, it sounds better, it sounds more natural, because that's how our ears hear it, versus down by your throat. So you want to put it a little further down your chest, and you want to have some kind of tape. A good tape to use is snot glue or snot tape. You can look it up. Or medical tape, you should have some in your bag. Any other tape like gaff tape or, you know, masking tape, all that stuff is going to slip off the body. You want something that will stay on the body throughout movement. You want to use a lav mic when you're moving around a lot, when you are going to do a wide shot and you can't have a boom in the picture, or you're doing a lot of reality TV show. Basically all of them have lav mics because you just can't really have a boom mic catching all those people. So lavs right here, that's the best practice. Backlight your images. This is super important to have a more cinematic look. Now obviously this is not a good example of backlighting, but when I say backlighting, I'll be putting up images right here. It allows you to have a deeper, rich, more contrasty cinematic image, not flat, not boring. It adds that, which the next step we'll talk into, like dark light contrast that you want in your image. All the time you'll see people being backlit, either them walking into a building and the camera's behind them and the house lights are illuminating the person, or you have someone walking up somewhere and the sun is actually the backlight. You'll see it always in movies if you actually look, and it just gives that cinematic bump to your lighting. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. You've probably heard it before, but if you haven't, it's the idea of having your image have contrasting light and dark, shadow and highlights throughout the image. It will, again, like backlighting, add more contrast and cinematic value to your image, and will take your lighting to the next level. Everyone uses it. There's not a shot out there in a Hollywood movie that doesn't have some type of light, dark, unless it's purposeful or it was just a lazy day shoot. It is the number one rule when it comes to cinematography and lighting and gaffing. You need to have points of contrast. Right now, we have some separation from the background. It's a little dark down there versus the white walls. So there's some contrast in this image right now, but it could be way more, obviously. But, when you look at this wall right here, and you see this light poster, and then you see the wall, and then you see this dark, and then you see this wall again, there's some contrast there. We got the walls in general being white versus the couch being a little darker color. This is a bad example because I'm just sitting here, but you get the idea. Separation from your background. Don't shoot into a flat wall. 20 feet maybe between me and that back wall. I'm on a wide angle, so it makes it even look further away. That adds some depth to my shot. On top of that, we have some leading lines and corners. You want to shoot into corners if you can. It's just more of an interesting shot. You never want to be super close up to a wall. Like this wall right over here, if I had the couch right here and I put the camera, it would look way worse than just having the camera right here, choosing to sit here, and then having the 20 feet behind me. You can move around furniture when you're doing a shot and reverse shot. You don't need the room to have continuity if it's not on the image. That's super important that I think early filmmakers don't really think about. You can move stuff around. If it doesn't, look good, move the table. If you're having a kitchen dialogue scene and the table's not necessarily in the shot, pull it away, get the close-up, so then shoot into an interesting corner, like into the kitchen, and that will make your image look better. No one knows what they can't see. So if you can cheat it and it will make your image look better and it works, do it. But if you can't, just remember, shoot into corners, make separation between you and your background, add depth. Depth, backlighting, soft lighting, and also the dark light. Those 3-4 rules will make your videos just that much more cinematic. Right there, that is a great takeaway for any kind of filmmaking. Want to take your shots to the next level. A lot of times you'll see with people walking, train spots or walking through an atrium or a hallway, there'll be someone with a bead board or a bounce. They're just up the shadows a little bit, and they'll be walking with them. And that term is Hollywooding when you're doing it without a stand. I talked about this earlier, but again, reiterating, shoot shadow side. It adds more contrast and dynamicness to your shot. So wherever the camera is, you want to light the opposite side. So if I was actually lighting this as for an interview and I had the camera this way, I'd have my light here shining in, wrapping around my face, having a little shadow on here, shooting shadow side. Have contrasting colors in your images. What I mean by this is if you're shooting a nighttime scene and it's a lot of cold whites and blues, have a lamp on there that has more of an orange 3000 color temperature, or vice versa. If you're shooting a really warm interior room shot, have some whites just to kind of counteract that just solid color. The contrast in colors will help, again, build your image up to more of a contrasty, dynamic shot, and it will also be able to be dramatized in the post when you're doing color. It's way easier to get that Hollywood orange teal look if you work in blue and orange lights. Anytime you're looking at an image, there will be different little pops of different colors, and that just helps, excite the mind. So when you're building your lighting kit, have some bicolor lights in there. Maybe have some RGB lights in there. You want to have a variety of lights, a variety of source sizes and types to really be able to achieve any kind of look you're looking for. And on top of that, let's talk about having at least 1 or 2 really powerful lights in your kit. Now, I'm not saying all your lights should be powerful, because there is importance in having small lights that you can rig or, kind of pinpoint, so you're not just blasting out a little area. You can really kind of just put little touches of color, but having at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, how big your kit is, you should have a decent amount, about 50% of your lights, super powerful lights, because what that does is it allows you to blast it through more layers of diffusion, giving you a softer, less sourcey, natural image. And the latitude that you'll get with a more powerful light will then in turn allow you to get more creative with your lighting, motivate your lighting. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about practicals. You don't just have an orange light off scene blasting and be like, oh yeah, there's my orange in the, this nighttime scene. You need to have a lamp in there. And, then when you have it turned on and you have this light coming through, you're motivating that lamp light, and you can then control how much light is actually coming through, because most times when you turn on the lamp, it's not going to be giving off that much light. But if it's motivated, it will trick the viewers to think, oh yeah, that's the normal amount of light. Basic rundown of a interview, if you're just doing interviews, have a key light over here, shoot shadow side. If you, depending on how dramatic you want to have, you can put a bounce or a fill light on this side, and then just have a hair light. You can have like a tube light, or just, a little panel light that you can boom off of a C-stand, just something that separates me from the background. That's a super basic way to do interviews, and it will serve you very well. So we got a cove light, which is a cove of diffusion with multiple lights in the back. And as you go, it's a differing amount of light, either output, depending on your scene, or diffusion as you go across. And that just gives a very natural fall off to your face. Roger Deakins created this light technique, and he uses it in almost every one of his movies, for the most part, when it's like interior dialogue. Obviously, he's probably not using it for 1917, but you get the idea. Cove light, super nice, natural fall off. Another one I've talked about a few times, book light. Again, I'll go over it one more time. Shoot a light through diffusion into an ultra bounce, out through another diffusion. Kind of like a corner, like a book. Overhead lights. When you take a light mat, or, really anything, but it's best with light mats because they're obviously lighter. Put it over there, the head. You can use black curtains to kind of control the light or the grid, and it just comes over, gives a more dramatic look. Think Godfather. Neutral density filters. They're like sunglasses for your lens. The higher the number, the stronger, or the higher the cut of light, or more stops it will take away. So if you're out on a sunny day, you'll probably want to use a 1.2 or a 2.1 strength neutral density filter. If it's just a cloudy day, it might be a 0.6. You can also use variable NDs, but make sure to get a high quality one like the Polar Pro one that doesn't have the crossing factor. On the subject of filters, let's talk about Black Promise. It's very common, probably the most standard filter out there. What it does is it softens the skin, it takes away some of the highlight, it has a nice halation on the lights, but also because of the black part of it, it keeps some of the sharpness in the shadows, retains the shadows. There is a Promise version. If you ever are buying it, make sure to buy the Black Promise over the Promise, because that's just kind of a blanket filter. Right now I'm using Glimmer Glass, very similar, but a little different halation on the lights, but you get the idea. It's just a beauty filter. And I would recommend getting a 1/8 and 1/4 strength Black Promise Tiffin. That's filters. Black Promise are great. When you're shooting a doc, a little trick, if you're having trouble getting the information you want out of your talent, go for a drive. Have them do an activity. It'll help distract them, and then you might be able to get that natural answer that you're looking for without them kind of seizing up or just not really giving you the emotional you want. So it's not the nicest look, obviously, because you're in a car, but a little tip for anyone who's doing documentary work. Another thing, softies or dead cats. This isn't a dead cat, but make sure to get some kind of wind protection for your mics. A dead cat is the blimp that you see with the cat, the fur on top of it. That's what a dead cat is the fur part. Again, if you have watched this whole time, comment below if you found this interesting. I know this is kind of fast. I'm kind of just word vomiting information, but I hope it has some value. And then if there's something you want me to go into a deeper dive in, comment below and I'll make a video just about that item. But stingers, what are they? They're basically nice, high quality extension cords. You can just get extension cords to start off, but you should definitely invest in getting some stingers down the line. You don't want to use a little dinky extension cord, especially those little flat ones that you use for like computer extensions. If you have those in your kit, trade them up for at least a heavy duty like Home Depot extension cord. Cinema glass versus photo lenses. What's the difference? Well, unless you're using like an ultra prime that has been made for cinema use, the big three differences is a further focus pull, so it gives you more fine tuning on your focus, and a longer throw, so it takes a little longer to get to where you want to be, which is good because on some of these photo lenses, when you go like this, that's like 20 feet, and it's really hard to really fine tune your points. Another thing is a declicked and manual aperture. So you can change the aperture without having to go on the back of the camera and move it around. Or if you need to do it for a shot for whatever reason, it just allows you to do that. Also, the metal, more robust construction. And finally, usually a set has the gear rings on the same points in the same size. So when you're using follow focus systems remotely, when you change lenses, you don't have to move around your focus gears to click it back on. So more than not, it's convenience, it's speed on set, it's reliability is what happens with cinema glass. It's not a necessity, especially if you're doing doc work or like one solo band. It's important to have speed on set, to have time saved on set. But that's a basic difference. Make sure to scout your locations before you go somewhere. This is an easy given, but if you're the cinematographer or you're doing a solo shoot, check the areas you're going to before, or have someone send you a picture. It gives you the ability to kind of workshop the shot list. A butterfly frame is a 6x6 usually, or it can get bigger, but it's for diffusion. A lot of times you can use it to put over the head to diffuse the light so your subject isn't in complete hard light from the sun. A V-mount or gold mount battery, it's just a power brick. It is just something that you can put onto any cinema camera, or if you get a plate that you can put it onto, it just allows your camera to last longer. If you're using a DSLR or mirrorless body, those little dinky batteries are only going to give you 45 minutes of record time, versus a V-mount might give you 4 to 6 depending on the size and how many things you're running off of it. If you are getting into the film world, invest in a PL adapter. That is a positive locking RE style adapter. It's the one when you see all the cinema glasses with the 4 fins around the side. Now, why this is important is it's just the best mount. It's not a spring-loaded mount like the RF or the EF or the E mount. It is a more strong, sturdy mount. Anytime you buy a cinema lens, buy it in PL form and then just have the adapter, because you can rent that out more than if it was an EF cine lens if you're looking to rent out any of your lenses. It's a little tricky if you've never done it to lock it. So it's like a ring that twists. And what you do is you put the fins into the camera with the lens, bloop, and then you twist it and it will lock into place. But you have to make sure you're going the right way. The last thing you want to do is be green on a set, being a second AC, putting a lens in, you think you lock it, you move away, and then a $30,000 lens just falls and shatters on the ground. You're fired, and you're probably not going to be hired for a long time, at least from that production. So if you're going to be working with PL lenses, understand it's a different locking mechanism. Talked about this in another video, but just have a notebook. I hope you've been watching this video with a notebook, and the tips that you've taken in, you're like, oh, that's interesting. You write it down. It's important to have a notebook. Anytime you're watching YouTube, you should have it by you. If you're trying to learn, or you follow any Instagrams, it's important to write down these tips that you can go over, that you can learn, and just better your knowledge. Another fun thing you can do, if you want kind of a handheld look, you put the tripod head plate off. Like with the camera, you put a tennis ball, or you can put a cine saddle, or just a pillow, whatever you have. I usually use tennis balls because I can easily throw them in my bag. You put it on it, and then you put the camera with the plate on that point. It smashes the ball because of the weight of the camera, but you still have some movement, and it will be able to give you these kind of, they're not fake handheld movements, but they give you the amount to have some control over where you're shooting, and you get a nice little like kind of natural rock. Have good cleaning habits with your gear. Anytime you go out and back. Make sure to clean your gear. It's important. And for all the editors out there, use KQW to cut. It'll save your life and it'll save you time. I'll see you guys in the next video. Comment below if this gave you any value and what you want me to go over in more detail in a future video. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Join the fleet. We're a train going choo-choo up the hill, and you want to be a part of this train ride. But I'll see you guys in the next video. A little teaser. It's going to be breaking down how I made a music video with zero budget. It's going to be a fun one, so stick around for that one, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.